Hello, everyone. I thought it'd be easier just to do a video to explain the performance management process. The software here will YouTube. uh, It's not very loud in the house, but you might hear a little bit of this and that. But usually it's pretty good where it kind of mutes out noises from dogs and all that. So I just want to make a point here about the performance management process. Basically, if you look at the performance management cycle, it's say in a year. So from performance plan to performance review, it's about 1 year. And some might do it twice a year. I've even heard some do it quarterly, but that sounds painful. So I guess it really depends on the needs of the organization, but largely it's within 1 year. So say, all right, everyone gets their performance plan, and everyone should get one that identifies the goals they are to achieve during the performance review process throughout the year. And they can even establish individual goals for development or whatever the employer employee decide to do. So as time goes by as a manager, what we should be doing is monitoring performance. And that doesn't mean looking for what's wrong. That means looking for what's right. We all have areas for development, and a little bit of coaching helps. And typically, that's just part of the process. We can't expect everyone to be perfect. Perfection is not going to happen. We're human. Now, when we get into issues of performance that are becoming a problem, in other words, someone's on the danger of not meeting expectations or not meeting expectations, then that's where coaching and counseling really comes in. And it might start off with just basic discussions. Here's what I see. Here's what you need to do. And in most cases, that problem is solved. But if it's not, in other words, it continues, it could be behavior, it could be attendance, could be the duties of the job, whatever it may be, then you would put someone on what they call a performance improvement plan. That plan is just to get them in shape so that they can meet expectations. If they do, great. Everything is going well, all is forgotten. At the end of the year, things are going well, they meet expectations. You don't, when someone starts meeting expectations, say you coach and counsel them about it, or give them a performance plan, rather, say in March, and they're good by June. You don't go back in December and think about March. It's over. All right. So you've solved the issue, or the employee also solved the issue. So it's not a problem. Now, if that continues, then what you would do is go into more formal process. It could be a verbal warning, and the verbal warning should follow up with documentation, literally describing, this is to note, based on our conversation, that this was addressed with you, whatever it is, and this is what expected of you, and we will talk about it again on such and such a date. Could be a few weeks, a month, whatever. Through that process, say you're going to measure it in a month. If they do not meet expectations, then go to what is known as a written warning. That written warning is a little bit more official. Even if the employee doesn't sign it, it's still active. So in other words, whether or not they acknowledge it doesn't make a difference. So they can't say, well, I'm not signing it. Well, you don't have to. Just document that they didn't want to sign it. And then it goes to, depending on the organization, that could be it. Or with, say, government agencies, they tend to do a final warning. And that's like 30 days, here we go, to do this, or consequences up to and including termination will happen. Some organizations might do the first written warning and say the same thing about up to and including termination, depending on the company's policy. So the final warning comes around. That's a real signature issue there, that employee may be inclined to look for another job at that point. Maybe things aren't working out. And then you go to the termination process. So the idea is that everything's been documented throughout that performance management process. So you can justify the firing of someone. And some will ask, well, isn't it employment at will? Yes, in many states. In Arizona, it's right to work. Michigan, it's right to work. Pennsylvania, where I live, for example, is employment at will. And I'm from Delaware originally, which is also employment at will. So yes, technically, you can release someone from their job. It could be a layoff, for instance, or something like that. But as far as protecting the organization, when it comes to performance management, you should still use the performance management process. And the reason why it's fair to the employees, sometimes all they need is guidance and everything's fine. No problem. Everything's good. There's those cases, though, where you have to go through the progressive discipline process. Number one, to make sure you do due diligence, but also to make sure that you're fair as far as treating everyone the same. And the reason why is if you were to go ahead and kind of fire someone willy-nilly, as it were, what would happen is that person could say, well, you did that because I'm a 52-year-old man, or whatever gender, whatever, nationality or whatever. And they may be correct. If, for instance, you're not putting others to the same standards and you're not using the performance management process, and maybe you're amongst the minority in that organization in some way, shape, or form. For me, as say when I worked for the state of Delaware, I was the absolute minority. So I could, in theory, say, well, you're treating me disparately. So even the notion that could happen, even if it weren't true, HR, their job is to protect the company. So everyone should follow the same standard. So in this scenario that you're working with right now, if a manager were to go ahead and come to me in HR and say, well, I want to write up this person, do you have any documentation, any verbal counsel, anything? And by the way, there's I didn't invent this, but there's the 3 Ds to the performance management process. And the first one is document. The second one is document. You know what the third is at this point. You should document everything. You're allowed to document anything you'd like. Keep it to yourself. What I'll do is I'll keep a file via email, especially, or even email myself and create a folder. So it's just there. And again, this is for the good things too. Because, when it comes a year later, what did this employee do? I don't remember. So it's just important, and it doesn't take that long to do, to go ahead and document. So this way, if you have to separate someone from employment, it's not really a surprise. And most individuals will move onward and forward because they'll get the hint at that point. Or they'll improve, and that's great. That's all we want. Meet expectations. Wonderful. Thank you. But other than that, basically, as far as the performance management process, it's about personal development as well, which is really important. It's all about our personal development. So, for instance, and this is a really tough one. When I worked for government in Delaware, we had one employee, and I might have mentioned this in class. I don't remember, but it's worth repeating. One employee go for a trainer job, and she didn't get it. And when she called the manager, the hiring manager, and asked why, she said, well, you don't have a performance review. So according to the merit rules in the state of Delaware, is if an employee does not get a performance review, it's not the fault of the employee. They automatically meet expectations. And this was fire, so to speak, to file a grievance, and this employee won. And they had to be offered the job. So they actually had to create a position for her and give her back pay from the time that she was denied. The extra back pay, difference between her current job and the raise. So this is why it's so important for everyone to do performance management and to have performance plans and performance reviews. So if someone comes to me and says, I'd like to write up this person, unless it's like a cardinal sin or behavior where it's an automatic write-up, they get in a cussing match with someone at work. Sure, write them up. They don't do what the manager asked, and it was crucial. Yeah, write them up. No problem. But in general, when it comes to basic performance and meeting goals and all that, you start out with coaching and counseling typically, and that leads to the write up and the rest of the progressive discipline process. But largely, the performance management process is really there to help people succeed. If someone's doing a great job, you want to document it. You want to be able to give it to them. It could be helpful for promotions in the future or just their ego alone and their sense of being with the organization. I mean, we all need an ego boost from time to time. We need to hear we're doing a good job. Some more than others, maybe in that respect. So this is the process, and it's more of a positive thing than it is a negative. In some cases, it has to be negative, unfortunately. And that's the worst part about being a manager. I can attest myself with that is when you have to have those courageous conversations, as my former manager liked to call it. I always liked that one. And really just address the issues and the problems. So, I mean, I don't want any of you to be that person who says, well, I want to write someone up for, again, general performance management issues without any coaching and counseling and documentation. The HR will go, that's really interesting. Oh, well, you need to start over. And there's no way you want to give someone a less than meets expectations if you haven't coached or counseled them throughout the performance review process, because you do that, they're going to start questioning the manager. And I've seen that happen a lot too. The other thing, I made a point in the discussions, I usually do this anyway, is the manager says, well, I'm too busy. Are you really? Okay, let's see. I want to see how busy you are that you can't spend some time as a manager, which is your job, to go ahead and monitor performance. And again, I have to really, really emphasize this. The idea is not to look for what's wrong. Start out with what's right. Most of the time, everything's good. Do we all have areas for development? Yes. I don't care who you are, what rank and file you have. I don't care how many doctorates you have. We all have areas for development. It's okay. It's not a sign of weakness or anything like that. It's an opportunity for development. So that's the other part I'd like to share with all of you to kind of explain the performance management process, because I don't want anyone walking out of this class thinking, otherwise. And by the way, when you go to job interviews for management, if you get the cliff notes of what I'm saying here, they're going to be thrilled. It's because they don't hear it often. And a lot of individuals, believe it or not, don't understand this process. I recommend that organizations educate supervisors yearly on this subject, and something that I was exposed in helping to do. And I thought it was a really smart idea, because otherwise what will happen if you don't really look into it, what they'll do is just lax on it or forget about it, and then it just goes away. Can't have that. There's a liability for the organization. So I don't blame you as a leader or future leader for mandating it. Everyone has a performance plan and review every year or whenever. And I would even say it's a good idea to have individuals, it could be managers and HR. Remember that partnership? We should be working together to sit down and look at the performance reviews to make sure that they're solid. Like, for instance, someone has and exceeds expectations. Oh, that's lovely. You have to really document what it is they did to exceed expectations. And a lot of times it means, oh, they've done something above and beyond. Meeting expectations is really good, by the way. There's nothing wrong with meeting expectations. It's nothing to do with quiet quitting and dragging yourself around. It means you did exactly what we asked you to do. Exceeding means you went above and beyond. And distinguished, wow, or whatever, the superior, you are walking on water. You did something heroic. So I don't necessarily expect that happen often, but that's okay. That's fine. You're great. Meets or exceeds, fine. move on. You did well. Good job. Attaboy, attalady. Move on. So, but you don't want to go ahead and write down there, well, this employee has been here for 15 years as a justification for exceeding expectations. That's my dog Chips barking because the other dog has a bone. So anyway, the idea there is that you have to be specific in how they exceeded expectations. Your time at work or employed with an agency does not mean you exceed expectations, lest you're on the quest for mediocrity. Oh, they're still hanging around. Thank goodness. No, it doesn't work like that. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I just thought it'd be easier to do a video than to write about it and just kind of make it more real for me to chat with you. I kind of went longer than I wanted to. So I'll see you on the boards. Take care.